Good evening and welcome to another scintillating, if belated, episode of Porch Talk. I, of course, am Paul W. Marino, and my compadre here with the very telling hat is none other than the one and only Eugene Michaelenko.
Happy Independence Day, everybody. The crowd roars.
All right, so I am just trying to find
That's it, the last
PowerPoint
one.
Adams history.
No, not PowerPoint, the Acrobat Reader. The last one.
Okay. So, here we are, the day after Independence Day.
That's correct, that's where it should be.
All right.
And you can go to full screen when we come to it.
Well, pick up. Now, drat it. I was going to click on pick up where you left off.
That's it. We finished that section last week.
All right.
We're now into a new era.
All right. And I believe that's full screen.
Yes.
Yes. So,
Now go to the first one. Go back.
oh, sorry, go back.
That's our opening image. No, not that one.
Well, that is the one before that one.
But wrong way.
Wrong way, all right.
One more. That's it.
All right, so Industrial Revolution. No more,
Ta-da!
there we go. No more digging in dirt or picking up after aminals.
And animals, yeah. Adams became an industrial village very early on. Well, most of the world was still digging in dirt and picking up after animals. People in Adams had created power, water power, and was operating machines. Well, North Adams definitely was ahead of Adams by about maybe, 7-10 years, but Adams eventually caught up with North Adams in that realm. But North Adams had better water power. North Adams, they had a greater
Yeah, the
drop.
two rivers.
Yeah, and the two rivers together. And they didn't have the farmland, that Adams had. People were still, trying to be farmers. And I think North Adams had maybe some smarter people too, who knew how to, do all this stuff. They needed the technological knowledge. But, all right, yes. Here's the W.C. Plunkett, William Caldwell Plunkett. They called him W.C. everywhere. He was born in Lenox, but the Plunketts were all over. There was Plunketts in Lenox, Plunketts in Hinsdale, Plunketts in Pittsfield. They were
And I believe there
dominant.
still are Plunketts in Pittsfield.
Yes, there are, and there's some in Lenox as well. Ron Feldman, who directs the Berkshire Symphony, his wife is a Plunkett. And then here is this is our first factory here in Adams, and it was called the Adams South Village Cotton and Woolen Manufacturing Company. Put that on a letter. Make a web page, an email out of that one. It was originally owned by the Quakers, cooperative. They each Quaker had a section to it. And it was actually an iron forge at the time, and it was right on the Hoosick River. Then Plunkett came into town. He had been over and working as a teacher in Lanesboro. He came to town to Adams and started buying up everybody's shares and got control of the company. And there's two pictures of him. There's one when he's back, I think, in the 1850s, and then there's one he's probably in the 1880s when he's already an elderly man. But look, he's still got the same fashion. Kids could complain, Dad, you're dressing like it's 1850. Get with the styles.
And he would have gotten his collars from Troy.
Most likely, yeah. Detroit, the Color City. But even as an old man, I think he was 50 years old when he had his two sons, when he had his WB and CT. So he's still a virile old man. If you look at the census from 1840, up at the top there, it says that there was about, 3,700 people in town. 436 were in agriculture, 32 in commerce, and manufacture there is 810. So there's twice the amount of people. This is in 1840, that early, who were in factories as opposed to being farmers. Early manufacturing was brutal. There was lots of failures. You read everybody who went out of business because of fires and floods and bank panics. But the major issue was there wasn't good enough transportation. They would have to go over the mountain by ox car to Troy to pick up the cotton there coming up the Hudson River, then bring it back over the mountain, process it, and then try and find a market for it. But in 1842, the Boston-Albany Railroad was built, passing through Pittsfield. And the people up in North Adams, especially Marshall, James Marshall, right? Marshall Street is named after him. He spearheaded the goal to get a trunk line built up to North Adams. And he got all these mill owners to kick in thousands of dollars to pay off the railroad so that they would build the trunk line and to guarantee them a profit. And oddly enough, after I forgot how many years they finally used up all the money, and the railroad was definitely making a profit for the railroad company. But the railroad it was a revolution. They say you could have breakfast in Adams and then dinner in Boston, which is before it was a 2-day trip. And it tripled property values. People who ever invested in money, George Nixon Briggs, our governor, he bought all of Summer Street. And he made a bundle of money when he got to sell the lots again at a higher value. And also it brought in Catholics, the first immigrant workers into the area. Normally we were Baptists and Quakers and maybe some Congregationalists, but now there were Catholics here. And if you look, I underlined it in yellow, what it took to get from North Adams to Pittsfield. What did it take, like an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 40 minutes?
Yeah,
so that means
sounds like it.
Yeah, so the train was going about 10 miles an hour, which was pretty good because a galloping horse can only do about that. And the horse gets tired, and well, the train just needs water and fuel. They don't have to stop, just keep fueling it. So, and the train that goes through Adams now, the Berkshire Scenic Railway, they go about 10 miles an hour too. So, progress.
And along essentially the same track.
And, yeah, right, along the same track.
That is cool.
Let's see, that middle shot there, I always point out, it has all the elements that made the industrialization possible. Number one, water power. You see there's a dam. They threw up a dam in front of the river, rerouted the water that would then go through water wheels to turn the turbines and all that. Then, of course, you needed a factory building. Then you can see the factory in the distance there, barely over the A of Arnold. And then across the street, you'll see the mill worker housing. And then the house all the way far to the right, the big all by itself there, there's the mill owner who got to live there, or a superintendent. Nice little community. And, well, last but not least, the train siding. And this is Grove Street in Adams. That's Route 8 right there. And that's that railroad track is now the Ashawautogook Rail Trail. The dam is gone, but it's still, that's how it is. Up at the top, the Cheshire Harbor Mill, that used to be there for the longest time. It was recently demolished, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think there's still a building.
Yeah, there's still something.
It says mole on it.
Yes, that's how, as you just start leaving Adams going up to Harbor Hill. Technically, I think this is in Cheshire.
And why was it called Cheshire Harbor?
Well, everyone thinks they harbored slaves there, an underground railroad, but the harbor appears in the early 1829 history, before the underground railroad was invented. And I think it's that spot there where the valley comes so close, it's so narrow. So I think they call that a harbor, because you know how narrow that valley is there, and even the valley going up from here into East Cheshire is also very narrow. So I think the narrow valley gives it. And I bet you harbor and holler and hollow are all sort of related. You know, those whole concepts. On the right-hand side is the Adams Brothers warp mill. When the railroad came through, there was investors who wanted to hop on the opportunity. These guys came out of Stockbridge, Van Duzenville, a section of Stockbridge, and the Adams Brothers, and built this mill. And around the time of the railroad, something like, what I've got here, 1, 2, 3, about 5 mills were built in 7 years. And this is the only mill that's still standing of all those mills that were built in that time.
Well, you know, Van Duzenville is where Arlo Guthrie's church is.
Oh, yeah, that's where it is? Okay. I always wondered where that was, and I always wondered where Van Duzenville was. I never researched that. To the left, down there, says Plunkett and Wheeler. Plunkett later, after he had that other mill, he went and built this thing here. That's about where Tommy Ayotte's garage is in Commercial Street, across from the new Cumberland Farms up in that area. And this place burnt in the 1940s, early 1940s, burnt, and they demolished it. And then behind it was that Cope place in Adams. Remember Brookshire Textile? It was Gil Rudnick ran it. Anyhow.
I must confess, I don't.
Yeah, okay. I thought maybe you knew Gil. And then after that, this is the L.R. Brown Paper Company, his first mill back 1849. And this mill here was torn down to be replaced with the other one. But this, basically, you're looking at the town common, and the end of the mill here is the entrance to to McDonald's in Adams today.
I remember that when I was a child.
Yeah,
When we were going to Pittsfield, we'd go by there.
It was there till like 1975, so you would have already been, what, a teenager at least. And the last mill was the Broadley Mill. It was actually mill number 1, but it started even earlier by, what's his name, Hathaway and somebody else, Clark. And that's Columbia Street, and that's where our car wash is today. Some people may remember it as Adams Auto or Katz's Junkyard. So those are all the mills that were built right after the railroad arrived. And I tell you, the only one that's left is the one up in the upper right-hand corner. Next one, please.
I feel like asking a stupid question, but I'll restrain myself.
Oh.
Unless you really want to hear it.
You're a man of good control. But no, let's hear it. Everybody loves
the
stupid
Plunkett
question.
and Wheeler, was that Wheeler any relation to the old man Wheeler that Twain references?
Oh, I don't know. I forgot where he came from, but he married Plunkett's sister. That's how he got in business. The Plunketts have always kept their business in their family, and Wheeler was his brother-in-law.
Oh.
And they're all, Wheelers and them are all buried up in Maple Street Cemetery.
Well, this Wheeler wouldn't be buried in a cemetery. He was working in a factory, and one day he was sort of meditating and daydreaming in the factory, and machinery made a snatch at him, and next thing you know, Wheeler was meandering all over the factory, going so fast, well, you couldn't even see him.
Oh.
You'd only hear him whiz as he went by.
That happened often. That happened in Adams.
Well, Wheeler got wove up into 39 yards of the best 3-ply carpeting.
Oh,
His widow was sorry. She was uncommonly sorry, and she did the best she could for him under the circumstances, which was unusual.
did she get the carpet in the end?
She wanted to give him proper and honorable burial, but she couldn't bear to roll him up. So she boxed him in a beautiful box, and she painted on him, "In loving memory of 39 yards, 3-ply carpeting."
What a way to go.
Yes.
Here's L.L. Brown, that paper mill you saw before.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is the one I remember.
Yeah, I figured. He learned how to make paper in Dalton at Crane, and then he came back here and all his knowledge. He had rich uncles who financed him and put up that mill you saw before. And he started making paper in Adams. He became one of the richest men in Berkshire County because not only because of his uncle's money, he was pretty smart. He owned this. He owned Xylenite. He owned even Freeman Manufacturing here in North Adams. He also had, it says his businesses. He had them in North Adams, Dalton, West Cummington, Holyoke, and New York City. But unfortunately, he died with like $2 million in debt, which is probably worth about $72 million in today's money. He did like a Donald Trump thing where he overvalued his business and got loans on it, and but the banks caught on to him quicker, and they came down on him. He died before his estate was all divided up, and his poor wife and his kid had to settle the whole thing and left town in shame. But paper was made here. The Daniels family took it over, and the Daniels kept on making paper there up until like 1971.
Now, I notice it says here, notice that the trolley car track split at this corner. There were 2 lines running on each side of the Hoosick River. Now, does that mean that there was one on each side of the river, or there were actually 2 sets of tracks on each side?
I think there was only one set of tracks. I don't think there were 2 sets of tracks. Just the fact that it went down Summer Street, the whole length of Summer Street, and at the end of North Summer, it went out into the field and went across that whole field and went through, came out by where McCann's is and where the city yard is in North Adams, and kept on going.
Yeah, my mother and her friend took the trolley up to North Adams to buy a car. And this is how my parents met. And once we were in Bennington, and he pointed out a building that when he was young, he rode the trolley all the way up to Bennington. And there was a car there he was supposed to get. And they offered to bring it down because it was on the 2nd or 3rd floor. No. And he drove it down and drove it all the way back to North Adams.
Well, this trolley car system operated in 4 states. So you could get on a car in Adams and go as far as Hoosick Falls, New York, or you could go as far south as Canaan, Connecticut. I think it's the only trolley system that operated over multiple states.
Yeah, it's a shame that the trolley car system was gotten rid of.
It was gotten rid of because right there in the front of this building you see is the automobile, and the automobile took over. And automobile companies, Ford and General Motors, all were buying up the trolley car systems across the country to put them out of business. And
Well, actually, the trolley, at least in North Adams, was replaced with a bus line.
Oh, right, yeah, there was a bus line. Berkshire Street Railway converted to buses. But by the 1930s, when the trolley car system was shut down, there were so many cars on the road that the trolleys cars were a nuisance to traffic. And recently, we just removed car tracks in Adams there on Route 8. It was a big event. Everybody was happy to see them gone.
There we go.
This is the second wave of industrialization, Adams, around the time of the Civil War. The upper left-hand corner is, in the center up there, at the top, were both woolen mills. The only woolen mills in Adams. Now, North Adams had the Blackington mills were all wool.
yes.
Were all wool. In Adams, everything else was cotton except these two mills. They're still in existence. That's up to the left there. That dirt road is Route 8, and that building used to be Mullen Mayflower. Now it's, I forget what it's called. The Milltown boys bought it. I can't think what they call it now, though. And then on the right is the old stone mill, which many years was making wallpaper, printing wallpaper. And now Lenny Fried and Mike Osberger, they are in there doing all kinds of interesting stuff with bikes and recycled material and all that stuff.
And on the far right is
Aladco,
the laundry.
But that's Plunkett's building. You can see, I don't know, can you enlarge that?
No, well, I can see 1888
Up at the top.
at the top.
And then it should,
below there's
1814, it should
Yeah.
say. Well, that mill you saw at the beginning there, the Adams South Village Cotton and Woolen Manufacturing Company, was put up in 1814, and they tore it down to build the beaming mill in 1888. And the Plunketts were very good about putting, big chunks of metal, granite with dates on it in their buildings to commemorate the years.
Yeah, well, what I find especially interesting in looking at this. Now, this was a factory, correct? Or was it offices?
This is offices. These are definitely offices
Okay.
for the mill.
But even when you look at other mills like the L.L. Brown Mill in the lower left-hand corner, you can see there's a lot of decoration that went into it.
Yeah.
You look at the brick frieze around there, which could not have been cheap. The roof was probably slate, and that would have had different textures, different colors, and then you get the ironwork at the top, and then the chimney, which itself would have been very elaborate, with a lot of fancy brickwork on it.
They definitely had a sense of architectural style. They weren't out to, and they probably had the money to do it. Labor was probably cheaper. They had convinced enough people to work for nothing. And materials were probably also less expensive. The profit margin wasn't so, low that they had to, overcompensate and put up steel frame buildings. And they also, I think, talked about permanence. They wanted something to last forever, and I think that was their objective. The middle building on the bottom is the mill houses. The L.L. Brown's had a second mill. And you can't see, you can't see the house, the row houses. Anyhow, yeah. It's just an illustration. And then on the right is the Jacquard Mill of Renfrew, which is now, some people may know it as W.R. Grace or McDermott. It's off the side of the road. All these are within, in fact, the Jacquard Mill is across the river from it's now the mill houses, the upper mill for L.L. Brown. So this is all clustered together in one little section on Commercial Street.
Yeah, neat.
And then this is Renfrew. This is, down by, Renfrew Field and the 7-Eleven and McAndrews King auto dealership and what else is down there? Anyhow, it was established in 1867 by two cousins who were born in Scotland but grew up in Adams. And they had an uncle named Pomeroy? No.
Jones.
No. Anyhow, he moved on to Pittsfield. It could be Pomeroy. Anyhow, he was going to give them money. He was going to fund them. But he went and died on them. And they went to L.L. Brown and asked if, and L.L. Brown financed them. And
Would that be Colonel Pomeroy?
No. It may not be Pomeroy. Boy, I wish I could remember his name. Whatever. It'll come to me some other day. Anyhow, it became the largest employer in Adams up until the 1890s. And they had like 5 mills in Adams and one in Dalton. They were all over the place. And they're the ones who built those brick row houses on both sides of Route 8. You remember when they were on both sides of the street?
Oh, yes.
And this architecture is, it's similar to the housing in industrial section of Great Britain. You ever see, like Hard Day's Night or what's the Hitchcock film? Where you walk down these streets and there's just these long rows of brick houses. And then you see there's a mill pond. There used to be like 7 mill ponds in Adams. And was the last one to ever exist in town. It got filled in when they remodeled C.T. Plunkett School, and they needed they had to carve out the hill to make a bigger playground. And they took the dirt from that hill and dumped it in here and filled in the mill pond.
Now, what are jackards?
Jackards are like, you get that fancy weave where there's a texture to it, and there's like the images actually bumps off the cloth. So you'll have like a flower that will actually be project up and out, just be printed or woven in there. It would be overwoven so that it was, so it was more complicated weave. And they did. Oscar told me, I'd like to believe this, those red checkered tablecloths that were so, you always just see them in Western movies and country stuff. He said Renfrew was their main item. If you saw one of those things, they were most likely made in Adams, that they made these red checkered tablecloths.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's a picture. These are all the guys running the town of Adams. Look at this, Jimmy Renfrew over on the side. Will Beckwith was in charge of the schools. There's one of the Jenks with the money. There's sales, which were sort of like...
Deacon Brown. Is that Deacon? The man in the left front.
No, I think it's David.
Ah, David, okay.
And I'm not sure what Brown he is. And down front is, what do you call it?
Charles Sales.
Sales. And then there's Jimmy Chalmers. His head's taken up with his next to his wife, Hattie. Him and Jimmy were the two cousins, Jimmy Renfrew and James Chalmers were the two cousins who ran the place. Jim Chalmers actually was in the Civil War. He was, I think he was disabled. I think he had a bad leg or a bad arm, and came back to Adams and still ran that mill. Who else is up here? Oh, and there's Holden. Yeah, the Holdens were lumberyard people. But Bonnie Bray was the old Greylock Rest, which has been torn down, and they're off of East Street. And some people might remember it as Byton Arnold School, and I'm not sure what else it was. But James Renfrew built that in the 1880s in that little section. And he, what do you call that? Yeah, and now it's coming back to life. Someone is fixing up the Madonna Hall that's there on that property into apartments. I don't know how far he's gotten, but I know they were working on it pretty steadily the past month or
It's
so.
a good thing that someone thought to name all these people,
And I think it's the Sales. Margie Sales' mother is in here. Where is she?
except for
That
the
one?
boy in the right
Yeah.
front
Yeah.
or right middle.
Margie Cook was a Holmes, and these are her grandparents. The Saleses were her grandparents. And she got all these pictures, and she gave them to us. She was born like 1904, 1905, and her parents were good friends with the Plunketts and the Renfrews, and she used to call me up on the phone, and we used to have long conversations, and she would tell me about these, her parents going to whist parties at the Bonnie Bray with the Renfrews, and so. And I was in that building when it was abandoned. It was one of the few buildings I got into when it was abandoned. And I remember this fireplace. I recognized it immediately when I saw this. I knew where it was.
How can you? There were people sitting in front of it. Well, that's how I recognized it. There were lots of people sitting in front of it.
Well, I didn't see this picture until after I saw the fireplace. The nuns ran that. It was like the Diocese of Springfield owned it. It was a convalescent home and a vacation spa for priests and nuns in the diocese before it closed. It was there for like 60 years or so, 67 years.
We have about 17 minutes remaining.
Well, I think we'll get through the industrial section of this whole thing, I hope. Yeah, because we're in Renfrew already. We're going to go to Zollnight, and that's it. So the immigrants came from Scotland, and they also at the same time, they were the second group that came here after the Irish, and then the French Canadians started coming after the Civil War and kept on coming up until the 1920s, and then the Germans started coming here about, I don't know, after the Civil War also, and they kept on coming into like World War I or so. But
what happened to the local Germans around World War I?
there was tensions, and there was some anti-German sentiment. They were teaching German in the high schools. They discontinued it. And there were several streets that had German names that they went and changed. There was Gritzbach Lane, which was changed to Turner's Avenue, and I can't think of some of the other ones. There was a good one, Kipper Avenue. Kipper Avenue was in Zollnight, and they changed it to Appermont Street.
Yep.
Kipper was a son-in-law to L.L. Brown. And Kipper was a pro-German, and he was part of a group that had lobbied the government to go into the war, World War I, on the side of the Germans. And as soon as the war broke out, we got pulled into the war, they rounded up all these German sympathizers and incarcerated them. He spent some time in jail. And so here he was, I think it was the 1930s, they finally looked at the street and says, we're going to change the name of this street. We want a street named after a German sympathizer. And they named it after Appermont, which was a Battle of Appermont. And a couple of our boys from Adams died.
I had not heard that branch of the story about Xylenite Village. Because he had bought the American manufacturing rights of Zelenite and began manufacturing Xylenite, which was an early form of plastic, from fiber from his father-in-law's paper mill.
We should talk about this when we come to Zollnight. Let's get through this, because Zollnight, I know you know a lot about Zollnight. But this picture is great because you see there's elm trees. You see all the elm trees going down the street. Then there's the houses, and then after the houses are these sheds. I don't know if they were storing their patio furniture there. They were probably storing there was a woodshed. That's that'll take you out to the woodshed thing. And then behind that is, can you imagine? There's another, ain't chicken coops. I'm pretty sure those are outhouses.
And behind them, Renfrew Field.
Renfrew Field, which is not really a field at the time. Can you see the
Well,
trolley car
what
tracks?
would be Renfrew Field?
Yeah, yeah. Next. Oh, I forgot we were talking about this. The rise in Berkshire County's the textile industry, it correlates with the rise of the slave population. We must acknowledge that our industrial success was partly due to racism and the exploitation of human labor. Enslaved Africans and their descendants provided the raw materials that fueled our industry. And then by the 1880s, when they were sort of sharecroppers, which was sort of an economic slavery, the black population definitely fed us all our cotton raw material.
Yeah, Rachel Branch
Oh, yes.
gets a lot of heat from people who say that her great-grandfather owned slaves.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is, but
No, it's not at all true.
yeah.
After the Civil War, he bought a plantation so that he could produce their own cotton that would come here specifically.
Yeah.
And people hear plantation, oh, he owns slaves.
Right.
Well, of course, he didn't.
Yeah. I know Ralph Brill says that the local guys owned slaves, and they didn't. Plunkett also bought lots of acreage in the Delta, Mississippi Delta. And it's interesting, W.B. Plunkett, the son, the guy, the mastermind of the whole Brookshire Mills situation, he went and had visited there in the 1890s. And no, take it back, in 1917. And I think he saw the condition that these workers were living in. Anyhow, he died on the train coming back to Adams. I wonder if he was emotionally distraught that he knew where his raw material was coming from. Next
Thank
slide.
you for reminding me about Ralph Brill. Oh, have I got some stories about him.
Yeah. Here's Renfrew that we see here today. They were weaving textiles for drapery and upholstery, thanks to Mr. Sam Jones. He converted, Arnold Print Works in North Adams, came to Adams and saved the mill after Renfrew went out of business in 27. And he expanded it and provided, just a miracle worker of what he did for that whole mill. Next slide. I forgot about Grandma Moses. They went and printed some of her her cloth. And here's a sample of it. My mother made draperies out of that material. I still have them.
Yeah, I've been to her grave.
Huh?
And I also drive past her farm when I'm going to visit my brother.
Oh. Where's she in Vermont? What town? Do you know? Remember?
No, she was in Hoosick, Eagle Bridge, New York.
Oh, right. That's right. She was a New Yorker, not a Vermonter. Yeah.
And she's actually buried in, I think it's Hoosick Falls.
Okay. And I thought she was a Vermonter through and through. You taught me something. And there's our big Arnold Print Works fire occurred.
10 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, according to Chittenden, 10,000 gallons of water were pumped onto the thing over a period of 28 hours, 6,000 gallons a minute. The mill pond that you saw, they lowered it by 3 inches. Biggest fire ever in Adams, but nobody was displaced. Well, everybody who bought anything at the auction lost it in the fire, but spectacular.
And the pond was 3 acres in size, And it went down by 3 inches. That's a lot of water.
A lot. 10 million gallons. It's the lime quarry, the Follets, and the Whipples, I guess, were the first ones to get lime out of there. Then it became New England Lime. Then it became Pfizer. Now it's Specialty Minerals. So it's been around the vein. And that lime vein, that like calcium carbonate vein, continues into Cheshire, Lee, West Stockbridge, Canaan, Connecticut, right down up and down the whole valley. It's millions years old deposits, it's probably billions actually, of shellfish from that bottom of the Iapetus Ocean, I'm told. And the calcium carbonate is used in everything, paper, construction, agriculture, medicine. It's just a major resource. Is that, yeah, okay.
Sprinkling on bodies to soften the smell.
Oh, yes. Trying to get to
So
zone.
how deep is that quarry?
Who knows? We should ask them to give us a measurement. It's deep. We're in Zeolanite now. You can talk about Zeolanite. I know it's a Pioneer Plastic, you mentioned. Talked about Emil Kipper, his son who bought the stuff. And Zeolanite was prosperous. They had his own post office. We have canceled mail with Zeolanite on it. And we even had its own station, railroad station from the Pittsfield North Adams Railroad. But it only lasted 10 years. And its failure is probably due to L.L. Brown's financial problems.
Only partly. The thing is, xylanite was very similar to, oh
Celluloid?
great, I can't remember it now. Now, there's another specific plastic that's like it. That plastic is flammable and explosive.
But not Zeolanite. Zeolanite wasn't.
That's right, not xylanite. Xylanite was made by a different process, and it was made from plant plastic, rather plant pulp rather than wood pulp. And the earlier plastic, the patents were held by the Hyatt brothers, and xylanite came out. It was still flammable, but not explosive. And one of the amazing things is that oh, I hate when my brain does this to me. The guy that manufactured the nitroglycerin.
Mowbray.
Thank you, Mowbray.
Thank God I
Was
remembered.
the chemist for this company.
Yes, he was. Yep.
And he would often walk through the mill puffing on a big cigar. And, yes, not the safest thing in the world to do. But when American Xylanite started making money, the Hyatt brothers immediately sued them for patent infringement. And they lost.
Oh,
the
good.
case was heard by a Judge Blatchford, and he found in favor of American Xylanite. They immediately appealed to a higher court, where the case was heard by, of all people, a newly promoted Judge Blatchford, who this time reversed his own decision and found in favor of the Hyatts. Well, this is when L.L. Brown backed out.
Really?
So, yes.
He abandoned his son-in-law? Yeah.
Yes, he did. And, the crime rate in xylanite shot up dramatically. People, muggings and so on. People were so desperate for money. And then a plastics company from New Jersey came up, and in the middle of the night, apparently, they bought the best machines and hired the best employees and shipped them all off to New Jersey. And then another New Jersey company came, bought the rest of the machines and some of the people and shipped them to New Jersey. And that's what killed American xylenite.
Oh. I got to do more of that, yeah. Learn more about that. And this is what do you call it, a tennis racket that was made probably in xylenite in New Jersey, that the George Reynolds gave to me. It's been in the Reynolds family, Cheshire Reynolds, and he's now given it to the Historical Society, and I've got pictures of it here. But when the mill went out, in '91, it had several different things happen to it, but by 1901, two lawyers bought it, Shaw and what's his name, Henry Harrington, and turned it into a paper mill. And it was made paper for like 100 years. People would probably know it as Bud Company or Berkshire Hills Paper, or it ended up as James River Curtis. And xylenite now is now more for its quarry than for its xylenite. I think this is my last one in this section of industrial. Let's keep going so I can get this. Yep, that was the end.
There we are.
And
we have about 2.5 minutes left.
Do you have anything you wish you have a mystery picture?
Well, of course, I didn't get here in time to pick a new one.
Oh.
But hey, how many people remember this picture from 2 weeks ago? Joanne, would you please put that photo in front of us?
We love this photo.
Yes, this is a gorgeous photo of two children with a horse. The question is, where was this photo taken? Oh yes, I can see you're all rushing to the phones right now. If you were watching this 2 weeks ago, you should know this.
And this is the third time this has been up here, actually.
Yes. Yeah, this photo was taken in Peru, Massachusetts, one of the hill towns. Something I love, well, there's a couple things I love about this, is it's obviously summer, and look how much clothing the kids are wearing.
Shorts and flip-flops weren't invented yet.
Yeah, so they're both wearing stockings and shoes and, of course, hats. And the other thing I love is they are so unafraid of the horse. And I think if this photo was taken today, how many kids would be willing to stand up that close to the horse, even when it's got its feed bag on?
It depends. Some kids are into it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Most kids are not farm kids anymore.
Right, yeah, they're not animal.
Yeah, we are not animal friendly. That also reminds me of a couple photos that I have from my family. When my grandparents first came to America, they traveled either on foot, yes, I see it, on foot or by sleigh. And my mother wrote on the back of the photo that this horse lived with us our first year in America. And all I can picture is the horse sitting in a chair, holding up a newspaper with its forelegs and reading.
And going to church with them on Sunday.
Yes. Well, thank you for watching. Joanne, thank you for directing. Thank you for having patience with us, particularly me. And thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And thank me for being here. We will see you in 2 weeks.
I hope so.
Here on
Porch Talks.